So welcome to Accessibility Essentials for Website Editors. I'm really pleased to present this for you. There's lots to learn, and a lot of you have already onboarded quite a bit of this info. I'm glad you've come. We've developed this session as an orientation to some of the new concerns and procedures around keeping the city's website accessible, because it's important that we all have the knowledge that we need to maintain that accessibility, and that we know where to find the resources to help us do just that. And we'll start with the very, very basics. Why must we have an accessible website? And the first thing we may think of is the legal requirements that we've heard swirling around. And these requirements that are now in place regarding accessibility in Ontario. But actually the number one reason as website editors is that it's the best practice to be as inclusive as possible in all our communications for the city. And that includes the website. Anything you do to enhance the accessibility for people with accessibility concerns, specific issues, those changes tend to enhance the accessibility for everyone, whether they have specific issues or not. And that's always been the case. And as technology has developed, it's become possible to make virtual information accessible to a really, really wide audience. So we come to the next reason number two. That's the legal one, is to conform with the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, which has certain requirements of websites and anything that's put out to the public electronically. It applies to social media and engagement pages as well. These requirements apply to websites of all business, nonprofit, and government organizations with employees. So if you've got a side hustle and you have employees, you need to follow these guidelines as well. And even if you or someone you know is part of a small grassroots initiative that has a website, these are still good guidelines to follow. And in the end, they're not hard. But if you are an organization like the city with employees, there are hefty penalties for organizations that are found to have failed in their legal duty, which we have now, to maintain the accessibility of their materials online. And just as a point of interest, Ontario's accessibility requirements are among the most stringent in the world. So if you're feeling like, all of a sudden we have a lot to learn, we kind of do, and it is important, but it's also not hard. You'll see as we go through how to maintain the accessibility of documents, videos, and images, and it's not hard. It's just a little bit to add to your routine. Now that we've laid all the legal terms on you, there's good news. I've actually got 2 slides worth of good news here. Over the past 7 months, many of the web editors and web approvers across the corporation have been involved in combing through hundreds of PDFs on the website. Some of you on screen today have been doing that. And many, many thanks for your hard work. So now our website contains only accessible PDFs, and many old PDFs we didn't need anymore have simply been removed. So now we have to keep it nice and clean. It's nice and squeaky clean now as far as PDFs go. And there's more good news. If you explore information on accessibility of online resources, you may be a little bit daunted to see a lot of information on things like layout and font size and headings. Like if you go through the documents the AODA recommends, like the really base documents on how to present things online, you'll think, oh my goodness, do I have to pay attention to all that? They are big items as far as the accessibility for the end user is concerned. But the good news is that the structure of our iCreate website already incorporates accessible content structure. So that is the size and color of the headings, the font color and size, etc., the basic structure of the page. So that's been done for us. We had to get iCreate to do a little custom work for us because of those high standards of Ontario websites that we have to maintain. But as web editors, we don't need to concern ourselves with those parts when working on the city website. So what's left? Web editors are responsible for making sure these following items are accessible: images, videos, and any documents that are linked in the web page. That would be Word documents and PDF documents for the most part. And there's actually some good news here as well. The city is not responsible for content in outside websites we may link to. So you may be making a link to a website on your page, and that's not a concern specifically. We always do link to high quality outside sources when we do make outside links, but they may be in jurisdictions where the accessibility standards are not as high as in Ontario. And that's all right. We don't get a penalty for linking to those. So I know you're all here to hear all about PDFs, and we'll swing back to PDFs. But first, I just want to have a quick look at images and videos. Those are pretty simple to keep accessible. So I just have a few slides on those. For images you're using on your web pages, you've probably already heard that images should always have alt tags or alt text. The alt tag is distinct from a tooltip or a title. And if you look at the little screenshot on my slide there, you're all familiar with this box that comes up when you put in an image. It's got the alt text that I've got in red there, and underneath it's got the title. For individuals using screen readers, it's the alt tag that's important. It takes the place of being able to see the image, and that's where you just put a brief description of what the image is showing. So I think I've got sailboats in Thunder Bay Harbor. You don't need to go into great detail, but just describe the significance of that image. You may be wondering what that title field is for. And actually, Trish Malmberg and I did a little experimenting a few months ago to see exactly what it did, because she noticed some web editors filled that out too. And she's a web page approver, so she was just checking out what happens in the back end there. So we found that the the title designator there, if you fill in the title field, and you're welcome to, it's not required, but it will result in a tooltip that will appear when users mouse over the image. But that depends on what browser they're using and the settings of their browser. So, you know, some people actually with low vision problems make sure that they do get pop-ups with title fields, so it's not a bad thing to fill in. But it's not required for accessibility standards just to fulfill those. So it's optional. I recommend filling in if you get in the habit. It does help a few users. For videos on the website, this is even simpler. You know, with the images, it's just the alt text. For videos, most of you already know that we don't post videos directly onto the city's web pages. The city has a YouTube channel, and I hope you all visit frequently and look at all the great videos on there. And so when we have videos in the city, just ask corporate communications to post that video for you onto the YouTube channel, and then you can make a link to it on your web page. And instructions to do that are available to you if you don't have them. And just let us know at CorpCom that you're wondering how to do that. I think I have a handout for it. It's not hard. But the advantage of us using YouTube that way is that when a video is posted to YouTube, it automatically gets closed captioning. YouTube puts that in. It fulfills the accessibility requirement, but it's not perfect. We can actually do better than that. I don't believe we're required to, but if you want optimal accessibility, and if your department has the resources, you can improve on what YouTube does. If you, for instance, have hired a videographer to make your video and produce it, you can request that they provide open captions in the video. And open captions are captions that everyone can see. So super accessibility for that. Or if you're doing a fancier video with a lot of image content and you don't want the open captions, you can request closed captions. And those will be, you know, they should be flawless if they're coming from your videographer's services. They probably put them in basically by hand. Or there are ways that you can compose a captions file, or your videographer can, and CorpCom can post that to YouTube alongside the video as part of the same posting process. And that way you get custom captions that are dead on accurate. So if you have any questions about that, you can appeal to us at CorpCom, but it's not a difficult thing. And failing that, just the captions that YouTube provides are adequate. And now what we've all been waiting for, clear my throat, Word and PDF files. And we need to know how to make sure these are accessible. And this is very important. But wait, literally, whenever you're thinking of posting a PDF file, consider not doing that forget the PDF and simply include the information right in the content of your web page. It can just be text content, or if it's lengthy, perhaps it will be suited better to the accordion folds feature that we have on our web pages. But always consider this option, because avoiding unnecessary downloadable content is a trend in websites today. And you may even have noticed this. Up until recently, the city's web pages have been pretty heavy in PDF and Word downloadable content, because that was a trend 10 years ago, and time marches on. So right now, even users of mobile devices who may not have accessibility concerns are finding that opening linked documents is cumbersome. So as I say, there's a growing tendency in website design against providing vital information in the form of downloads, if it can be avoided. But sometimes it can't be, fair enough. PDFs and Word documents have their uses, and so we need to know how to make them accessible and post them up there properly. Most PDF documents that you'll be posting originate as a Word document. Most PDF documents everywhere originate as a Word document, unless they're a fancy guide that was done in InDesign or something like that. So everyday documents that we're making into PDFs start as Word documents, and so the first step you'll take is making sure that Word document itself is accessible. So there's specific steps for that. Run down in my notes here. Yeah, I'll go over the basics here, and you can find more detailed information in the reference materials that I'll mention at the end, so you don't need to memorize everything I've said. Also, I hope to make this recording available later if you want to refer back to it. But I find that it helps when I'm composing a document in Word to imagine it being read to me, because this is what a screen reader device does for a visually impaired person. And one of the reasons we make documents accessible is so that screen readers can interpret them. So one of the first things we should be in the habit of doing in Word documents is designating headings properly. And that's what my little screenshot is about. And this is done with the Word Styles feature, a similar concept to what you do with a web page with, headings 1, 2, and 3. You just want to make sure your headings are in a logical order. So I think the text in a Word document by default is in the normal style category, and then you can go through and designate your headings. So really that's just, instead of doing what many of us do and just making the headings bold, think about, is this a major heading at the top of the page? That would be a heading 1. Headings that are flowing throughout your document would be heading 2, and heading 3 would be subheadings. And logical reading order is also important for people who are visually impaired, and again helps the screen readers read the document to them properly. So it's important to have your headings make sense. You can even make a little wireframe of what your document is going to say and chart out, is this a major heading, is this a subheading, and logical order. I think that makes sense to all of us. So next, just like on the website, make sure any images or illustrations in your Word document have alt tags. You can even set your Word to prompt you for that. You can have it check for accessibility while you are composing, which I find actually easy and seamless. So if I pop in a document, it asks me, or if I pop in an image, it asks me for the alt text. So that way I can't neglect it. But if you're just popping images into an existing document, or you don't have that setting on, it's easy to put in the alt tags. You right click on your image and select Format Picture at the bottom of the drop down. And in the ribbon, then you'll find the alt text tool. It'll just pop up like magic above your document. And the alt text tool is where you put in your alt text. I believe I have that on the next screen. Yeah, in newer versions of Word, which I think we all have, even if we don't have our new computer yet, in this sweep of new computers, I think we've all got pretty recent versions of Word. So when you select the alt text tool, it pulls up a text box on the right-hand side for your alt text. It used to pull up a box right in the middle of your screen and you couldn't see your image anymore, which could be a bit confusing. So this is actually pretty easy. And depending on your program settings, the box may already have text in it. I can see that my box there says a picnic table and a tent in a forest. And that is a really good alt tag. And so artificial intelligence came up with that. It's not always perfect, so you want to look over there and see if it's guessed right, but it's pretty good. And that's really a good example of the level of detail you want in an alt tag. The alt tag or the alt text is actually bracketed in brackets of code for the screen reader that tell it to designate this as an image. So the person listening to the screen reader, they'll know it's an image. So you don't need to say an image of a tent. You don't need to use up character space doing that. You don't get a lot of space for your description either, so you couldn't put a paragraph in here if you wanted to. I think it's limited to around 100 characters. So, so you don't need to say, for instance, a picnic table and a tent in a forest and water bottles on the table, etc. Because from this brief description alone, the listener will know it's a campsite. And that really is the substantive meaning of that picture. There's an interesting thing down here at the bottom. On my screen, it's a little bit blurry. I hope you're seeing it better. But there's a checkbox that says mark as decorative. And that's important, actually. It may not come up very often for us. But if there is an image in your document that is purely decorative, and I'm thinking of people with letterhead that has cute little brackets on the corners or a little curly Q below the title, and those types of features, those don't need alt tags. Describing those, if you imagine a screen reader reading out the document, trying to describe those things is simply confusing. So those are omitted when a screen reader interprets a document. Don't put any alt text in there. Another basic tip for keeping your Word documents accessible is to avoid tabled information. And I know you can't avoid it all the time. Tables have their uses, but they can be a bit tricky for accessibility. If you imagine a screen reader reading a table, you know, how do you make it flow? How do you show the meaning of that table, especially if it's kind of a big one? So it's possible to do this, but at a minimum, you have to, you know, think out your table in advance, make sure it's going to have good descriptive titles along the tops of the columns and along the sides of the rows. Those are referred to as headers. And you'll want to put, and you'll be prompted to put an alt text tag for your table. If you can't imagine what you would put for those columns and row titles, probably you don't need a table at all. Probably your information is better expressed as a list or just as text. And that is going to be easier for a screen reader. So tables sometimes, but not tables all the time. And finally, in a Word document, and this comes up a lot, make sure to fill out the title field. And you'll find this if you go to the upper left of your screen under the File menu and you select Info. This whole screen comes up with information about your document, the word count, etc. And on the right-hand side of that, I've got it circled there. You can click where the title should be and just add a title. A lot of the other fields there aren't necessary, but the title tag is for Word documents and for PDF documents. So it's a best practice to complete that title field in your Word document. And the hope is that it will carry through when you convert into a PDF document. That title will be there and help the PDF pass the PDF's accessibility checker. Word to the wise, it doesn't always. It's a strange thing, but sometimes you put the title in your Word document. When you get to the PDF, you still have to stick a title in there. But that's easy, and we'll get to that in a couple of slides. Once you've got your Word document done and you want to check its accessibility, that's easy. You go to Review in the top menu. It's right about the middle, just above the ribbon, and select Check Accessibility. And with any luck, and if you've performed the accessibility steps correctly, in the box that appears on the right-hand side, it will indicate that no accessibility issues were found in your document. And it has a nice little green check mark there that we always love to see. If you don't get the green check mark the first time, this box will give you a description of what you need to go back and fix. So those are the basics of keeping simple Word documents accessible, and that leads to accessible PDF documents. So on to PDF files. As I've mentioned, most but not all PDFs we deal with originate as Word files, and we convert them into PDFs. But sometimes we will be confronted with a PDF that was made who knows when by who knows where, and we want it up on our web page, and who knows if it passed accessibility checks before. We didn't used to do them. So if you've done it as a Word document and it was accessible as a Word document, there's a good chance the resulting PDF will also pass accessibility checkers. It's not absolutely guaranteed. It's important to note that Adobe Acrobat Pro 2020 specifically is necessary to have the full suite of tools to create accessible PDFs and check for accessibility. That's the gold standard. That's what we've been told by the AODA people is, you know, if we check with this and it says it's accessible, that's the extent of what we need to do. If you have Acrobat Standard, some of the accessibility functions will be lacking. If you create lots and lots of PDFs, I recommend that you ask your supervisor about Acrobat Pro 2020. If you have Acrobat Standard and if you don't create all that many PDFs, maybe ask a colleague who has Acrobat 2020 to check your PDFs for you. But if you do a lot of them, you probably want it on your own PC. And again, full instructions for what I'm about to show you are listed in the handout. I think I've emailed that to everyone now, but I'll give you a run through for checking a PDF. It actually, you know, it's funny for me to say it actually is a little bit fun sometimes checking PDFs, but I realize there's people in our group today who literally checked hundreds of them over the last few months. So maybe they didn't find that fun, but it's nice to check and know that your PDF is accessible. So the screenshots I'm going to show you are from Adobe Pro 2020. And as I say, some of the checkers are available in standard, but it doesn't do the full checking for you. With your PDF document open, what you'll do is check on, click on Tools in the top menu bar, as in the screenshot. And a menu will appear on the right-hand side of your screen with a number of options, and you'll naturally select Accessibility. A whole range of accessibility tools will then appear in the right-hand menu. And the use of all these tools, you'll seldom need all of them, but it is described in the resource documents in the handout that I've sent. But let's take a walk on the wild side and go straight to accessibility check. And my sample document was just a fairly simple Word document with some headings and maybe a couple of pictures. So once you press that, you'll be presented with this window on your screenshot. And although it makes interesting reading, all you really have to do on that screen is just leave all the default check marks checked and click Start Checking at the bottom right. And your computer will chug for a few seconds on your document. So on my document, here is the result I got. And the nice thing is, automatically we're seeing lots of green check marks. You'll see in my screenshot the document section of the checking result is expanded. The others don't note any problems. If there was a problem in the other categories below there, like alt text, there'd be a little number there, and you could expand that and see which problems it had detected. So just a few things in document, no issues in the other categories, so I'd be fairly pleased with that result. 2 of the document issues have blue question marks beside them. And these are simply prompts to remind you that your information should have, in the case of the top one, a logical reading order, and in the case of the bottom one, that your text should have sufficient contrast in relation to your background. And what I found is no matter what Word document I feed into the, convert into a PDF and then do the checker, these are always flagged at the PDF end. And they're simply reminding you that you need to check those. It's actually something the computer can't check on your behalf. I think I mentioned that in my next slide here. If you click on any of the X's, the question marks, or even on the green check marks, you'll get a drop-down menu of options specifically for that item. So here I've checked on color contrast to see what options I have with that. Blue question marks, as I said, indicate items that need a visual inspection by an actual human. Artificial intelligence can't do it for us here. And in this case, it's indicating color contrast. If you're sure that your document doesn't have any text in it, which is a light color, say a light blue or a light red, and I know some of our Word programs are set up when we choose the headings to put them in, it's a fairly dark blue. But just give it a visual check and ask yourself if your vision was really not very good and you were trying to read this even enlarged on your screen, would you have trouble reading that text? And I recommend, just as a web editor, and because of all the text I've worked with over my life, and I did used to work for the CNIB, just leave your text black and you'll avoid all problems, and you don't have to make a judgment call if your text is just black. So having clicked on that, it's given us a few options. And if you're certain that your document is okay for color contrast, you can go ahead and select pass. And as soon as you do that, that question mark will turn into a green check mark. You also have other options. You could change it to fail if you realize you need to go back and check a few things and review your document again. That'll flag you to pay attention to that. And if you've taken care of it, you can change it to a green check mark. So once you've made the correction, you can do the accessibility check again, and give the issue a pass. Don't skip this, or your document ultimately won't pass the accessibility check. So it's just a prompt that you've got to look at those. So how do we deal with that red X, that failed title requirement? Well, just like with the question mark, we right-click on it to see what our options are. And naturally, we're not going to click skip rule because our document will never pass. You can click explain if you're not sure what this means. But what we're going to do here is choose fix, because that's, of course, ultimately what we want to do. And very helpfully, the program will pop up a window where you can enter the title information, which is at the top of the window there. And there are several related fields, such as subject, author. I think keywords is the bottom one. Those aren't necessary for accessibility. You can fill them in if you want to. Word documents usually grab the name of the author. You can see this one has Dana Earle as the author. Leave that in if you want it. But really, only the title here is necessary for accessibility. So you would uncheck leave as is. You would pop in your title, and that will make that item pass the accessibility check. The title does appear in screen readers, so that's why it's so important. So once you've worked through all those little niggly flagged items and you have a nice row of green check marks, your PDF is accessible, and you can exit the accessibility checker. Some of us run the checker one more time just to be sure. Strangely enough, occasionally it'll flag things again, but it's usually just those blue question mark items again. So once you've done this accessibility checking, make sure to save your document, of course. And this has been a simple but typical process of checking and assuring accessibility in a PDF. So this has not been too hard. Easy for me to say, I've done it a few times, but I don't find it too hard now to do this routinely, as we must do. There's another feature in Adobe Acrobat Pro that I think I have time just to show you real quick, and then we'll take questions. It offers you more than one way to run through this process. It actually has an action wizard that helps you through the process, and I found that action wizard pretty neat. So to get to the action wizard, you'd go to Tools in Adobe Pro and scroll down, you'll find Action Wizards, and one of the wizards is Make Accessible. It still has to ask you some questions. It doesn't just go pow and it's accessible, but pretty close. And I don't have time to run through the whole wizard today, but you might want to try it. It takes you automatically through the whole process of checking and fixing. So where you're clicking to get the box to come up to to fix or to add something into a field, it pops those up for you as part of a process. It'll ask you some questions you don't get asked when you go through the process by hand. It will always ask you if for instance, if the document has fillable forms, etc. If it doesn't, you just click no and it proceeds through the process. So most of its functions run pretty automatically, and at the end, it will run that same accessibility check that you saw with the window with all the default fields and all the little check marks. That'll come up, you run that, and very, very often, it will have fixed everything. And just as a tip, I've used it a few times when, for some reason, I was having a problem getting a document to be accessible. There was something I was trying to fix, and it just continued not to pass. And when I went through the wizard, even though in the back end the processes should be the same, occasionally the wizard will fix an item that I was having trouble with. And it honest to goodness does. You can trust it. This is the gold standard. So check out the wizard when you have a chance. I recommend that. So we're almost done, just a couple more slides. And this is just something I wanted to add. I was hoping to have a finished version of this to show you. But CIT has been helping us develop a compliance tracking tool. And that's a tool that will allow you to indicate as a website editor that you have checked to make sure any new documents, videos, or images you're putting on your web page are accessible. And it's a quick extra step. And the form is going to live in inside CTV. You can bookmark it on your PC so that you just click and you have the form available to you right away. I think I've got a screenshot of a draft of it here. It's going to be shorter than this, but basically it will allow you to check off which web page you're working on, which new or edited materials you have added to that. And I think there will be a checkbox at the bottom, which we can't see here, that just says you're certifying that these have been checked by you. It's important to us because it's a way of the city showing the ministry in charge of accessibility issues that we do have a process in place for this. So every time you add new media to the web page, as soon as you've submitted the page, you'll pop over to this form and quickly fill it out and record that you've done the checking. You can also leave a comment if you'd like to alert the web page approver of anything tricky you found in there, anything you're unsure of. At the web page approver's end, we'll be able to see a list of tracking forms that have been submitted. So when we're approving, we'll just kind of marry them up together. This is going to work on the honor system, and I'm sorry that it adds an extra step, but it is necessary that we do this. So you'll just have a short extra step to do. I think that's going to be rolling out probably early in the year and in the new year. So if there's any questions about it at that time, we'll certainly help with that. But it'll just become a routine thing that you do. And actually, it works on the honor system. So we're trusting you to fill one out whenever you add new materials, just so that we can have that assurance that it's been checked. Part of the reason for this is that web editors are sort of the thin edge of the wedge. We have over 100 web editors in the corporation, and usually only 2 or 3 people working on approving the pages. So those 2 or 3 people just aren't capable of checking every single new PDF that's added, or checking to see if a new PDF has been added. So that's why it's important that you use this tool once it rolls out. And the nice thing about this process is it will ensure, number one, that visitors to our website will have an optimal experience. And that's the biggie. That's what we're aiming for people to enjoy and be able to take in the information from our website easily, no matter what their accessibility issues may be. And as I said, it helps the city to track new media that's been added to the website, and that will assist our internal accessibility audits, which we're obliged to do as per the Act. And if it's necessary, if there's an outside audit from the ministry for seniors and accessibility, we can show them what our process is. And I think we've devised a fairly robust process here, and tried to make it so it's not time consuming. So I've emailed you all a handout with these resources on the screen for your information. And this presentation will also soon be available as a video. Here's a screenshot of what's on the handout. A lot of you have probably already looked at it. It's the exact same information that's on Inside CTB in both the communications section of Inside CTB and in the tools and resources section. So it's hard to miss. Many of you have viewed these guiding documents before, but if this is all brand new to you, I really recommend that you view the training video. It's listed near the top of that form, the 45-minute instructional video. It's mostly about creating accessible Word documents and then converting them into accessible PDFs. And I'll warn you, an older version of Acrobat Pro is used in the resource, but the principles stay the same. Just the screenshots look a little bit different. The next document on the list is a checklist. Is your Word document accessible? And I highly recommend this one when you're creating Word documents. Again, at the moment, this checklist features an older version of Word, but the steps are really clearly described. Just the windows in the new version look a lot nicer. The next document, how to set up Word to create accessible PDFs, is also handy. It's actually a document that was put out by Adobe rather than composed by us. And the big one there, using the accessibility features in Acrobat Pro to create PDFs, that is the comprehensive handbook. If you are having a really difficult time making a PDF accessible, or if you've asked CorpCom for help to make a PDF accessible, this is the document that we would all be using to work it out. And there's no PDF that you can't tackle with this and eventually make accessible. So there's always a solution. And finally, at the bottom there, you can go right to the source, Adobe's own webpage, that details how to create and verify the accessibility of PDFs. And with that, at lightning speed, actually 38 minutes, not bad. It leaves us some time for questions. So let it rip if you have questions. I'm not hearing any. If anyone's asking any, make sure that you have unmuted. I do have one, if we don't have any from the audience today. In my last session, a person asked, what if you have a PDF where you've just made an update to one sentence? Either you've made that directly in the PDF itself, or you've gone back to the Word document, made the change, made a new PDF. Do we need to do the accessibility check and fill out a little form about new media being on the website? And unfortunately, the answer in both cases is yes, because any change to a document could inadvertently throw an accessibility issue. It's just the nature of software, and we want to make sure that all of these are absolutely accessible. So it's a quick extra couple of steps just to do that accessibility check. If you've only changed a few words, you're probably going to pass the check, but we still want to know that you've posted a new version on the on your web page, just in case we need to check back later. Well, if there's nothing else, you have an extra 20 minutes in your day now, and I really thank you for joining us. If there's, if you have any questions ongoing, just appeal to CorpCom. We're your resource now for questions regarding these website materials, and we're always available to you. So ta-ta, everyone.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Thank you.